everything out there that's supposed to refine the human being, both on a physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual levels, they're reduced to basically three teachings: right thinking, right speaking, and right acting or behaving. Now, and it has to be in that particular order. Okay, you can't act if you don't think well. However way you act, it's going to just come out wrong. And you can't speak if you don't think well, because, well, you're just incoherent. You know, you haven't used your common sense, you haven't used your rationality, you haven't digested experiences well. So right thinking is paramount. Now, how the hell do you think the right way about anything? You know, if there is anything about Socrates that needs to be known, is that this is a guy who just came and realized that people just don't think right about anything. About love, about relationships, about education, about life, about themselves. Nothing about them is right. So I'm not going to tell them abortion is bad or abortion is good. I'm just going to tell them, listen, let's sit and talk about sex a little bit. Now, I don't care about your biases, and should you throw me your biases, I'm going to push back. I'm going to force you to think relatively healthily about this stuff. You know, sex has to do with human biology. If sex was a rational thing, well, damn. You know, the human race would have been gone long, long time ago. It's instinctual. It's powerful. You know? And you come to realize, well, you know, this is a man who goes around town for like 40, 50, 60 years, telling stories, talking to people about how to think well about this stuff. People don't like it. Sure, he has followers, but the only one who stuck around was really one or two. And even in the end, when Socrates is about to die, his disciples begin to cry. He says, are you guys kidding? You've been walking side by side of me for the past like 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and I've been telling you that my flesh is a prison, that once I die, I will go back to my maker. Why the hell are you guys crying? Like Rumi, what he says, when I die, come to my grave with drums, with like spiritual wine, celebrate, I am free. You know. آدمی در عالم خاکی نمی آید به دست، آدمی دیگر بباید ساخت وزن و عالمی. That if you want to create a different human being, you have to destroy the world that has created them. And in essence, you have to destroy them. So right thinking is the first step. And since today, there are really no teachers to be found, and you should always doubt the moment anyone says, come follow me. Your best bet is to just consume a lot of books. You know, varied books. Those who are atheists, those who are not so atheists, those who are profoundly religious, you know, philosophy, anthropology. Just be a rich, you know, thinker on the inside. So, and the problem with being rich on the inside, hopefully by then you will be able to kind of manage the conflicts that ideas will bring about. You know, now when you have created a rich library on your inside, when you can think well, that when something happens out there, instead of just passing a judgment very, very quickly, you sit back and you say, okay, let me see what's happening here. You know, it's kind of like what people say about Donald Trump, that, you know, his father was never caring. Or what they say about Adolf Hitler, that he was an artist, but he was spanked at every time, every corner when his parents didn't like what he was doing, you know. And so he had a lot of aggression on the inside, no different than Trump. And the only tragedy is they just kind of express their repression in such an awful way. Now, when you become rich and pregnant with emotions on the inside, because that's what ideas do. Ideas create a good amount of emotions. Now, you need to be able to express your emotions. Now, Zoroaster didn't talk about expressing your thoughts through painting, through sculpting, through gardening. He was mainly talking about the spoken word, you know. For those of you who know this philosopher named Wittgenstein, he was suicidal, he was depressed. If it wasn't for Bertrand Russell, he would have probably just ended his life very, very early on. We are really held hostage, according to Kierkegaard, to Wittgenstein. We are held hostage by language. I mean, I want to tell you something. I want to respond to your question adequately. And I want to feel your question. And to some extent, maybe I even do. And I want to use words to convey what I feel and the depth of my feelings and thoughts in response to your question. And as you have no doubt noticed, I am fumbling left and right. I go from Wittgenstein to this, to that. I'm all over the place. And it's because I'm held hostage. I don't really know how to convey. And it's because I don't really know how to think well. I haven't been engaged in thinking as a healthy exercise for most of my life. I come to class, you ask me a question, and I sincerely want to respond to your question. I just don't know how. So I go from one story to another. I go from one philosophy of life to another. And in the end, you walk away saying, you know, he said a lot of things. I'm just not sure what exactly he said. And so the spoken word, using it in the proper way. I mean, if you know the history of how words and language came about, I mean, look at a child, an infant, your son, you're a father, and you're a mother. And so, you know, they come out of the womb and they cry, and they grunt, and they groan. And it takes you a while to figure out what the hell are they asking for, you know? And then all of a sudden this magic happens, where they say, water. Something that took them all this, like hours, lots of crying and screaming, and you as a parent had to figure out, it's like Rubik cubes, you know, what the hell is she talking about? And then water is a shortcut. Within like a second, you know exactly what this kid wants. And then the written language. The problem with the written language is that every single one of us in this classroom come from a different culture, different background. You know, you smoke, but your smoking is from a different culture. You smoke because you're bored. You smoke because you're depressed. You smoke because you're lonely. You smoke because you hate your life and you hate your parents and you hate God. A Native American smokes because it's their time to grow into a different stage. They love everything about their life. So the culture is different. The problem with the written language is every single one now looks at what they read through the prism, through this narrow window that they occupy. And now everybody walks away with a different perspective and different philosophy of life. That's why it's always important to kind of have a living, quacking teacher. So every time you have a question, you ask, and the teacher says, no, this is a wrong question, you're not there yet, and even if you are, you don't really understand it. So just be patient, shut your mouth. You need someone to fight back against the illusions that most of us have, myself included. Now, so once you begin to think well, you have to come to a place where you say, okay, feelings and thoughts, how do I express them? And man, now you got to go through many, many, many years of trying to figure out what exactly it is you're thinking, and what exactly it is you're feeling, and how exactly can you express it in a way that people can understand. You know, and it's something you'll find in the movie Philadelphia. That this lawyer uses all this flowery, big word language, and the judge, the prosecutor, defense says, speak to me as if I was a 2-year-old. And all human beings, every single one of us in this classroom, regardless of our age, we are too. We need simple language to understand things, complicated things, you know. I always find it interesting. I don't know if you guys have watched Noam Chomsky recently. He's this like 128-year-old guy. At least I know he looks that way. And now and he doesn't have the time or the energy. Maybe his body is far too weak and feeble to go to actually physical locations to give talks or to have debates. So a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting and he just happened to be, there. And so I clicked, and Noam Chomsky was interviewing or debating this 22-year-old Israeli kid. 22 years old. 22 years old, having a debate with a guy who is like 20 times his age, who spent his life, not in emotions, but actually reading and observing and thinking. And you say, well, this is a kid, and like all kids, they create some accounts, they get subscribers, people follow them, all of a sudden they have, as a 20-year-old, a big name, like Taylor Swift. And now they can actually sit with the Pope and have a conversation about what Catholicism is, And so what you have in the second aspect of Zoroastrian teaching is you have to spend a lot of time to kind of perfect your linguistic abilities. So first think well, don't talk, just think. But to think, you have to make sure your biases and judgments don't interfere to contaminate what you want to think about. Keep your history away. Keep your biases away. Above all, keep your goddamn emotions away. No one cares about how you feel about anything. Shut your mouth, sit back, just open your ears. And if you object to anything, keep it to yourself. No one cares. Once you have perfected the craft of thinking, go on this quest to perfect your expression. And if any of you in this class are lovers of the Christian tradition, and by that I only mean the stories given to us by Jesus only in the Gospels, you have a man who says, the only way to perfect expression, tell stories. There isn't much else I can do. You want the truth? I can't give it to you. I'll just tell you a story. Even when you perfect your thinking, even you perfect your language, you realize you're paralyzed. You can't really tell people exactly how you think about things or how you feel about things. It doesn't work. Yeah.
Isn't that the power of art? And isn't storytelling an art? Like, these things transcend language, right? And they often come from inspiration. Like, truly good art often comes from inspiration. So
part of it inspiration, the other part, it has to do with the culture. The richer the culture, the more it comes to realize certain real things about life can't be spoken directly. One of the best books that talks about this, I think it's called African Wisdom. It's a book I bought at Moe's bookstore in Berkeley about maybe 20, 30 years ago. One of the nice passages in the book is that when you come to America, when you go to England and you ask what's 2 + 2, they tell you it's 4. It's point A to point B. Very direct, very quick. When you go to certain parts of Africa and you ask what's 2 + 2, they give you all the numerics and they give you all the alphabets. And after 5 hours of waiting, they say, oh yes, it equals 2 or 4 or 5 or 6. And so what you have is a culture that is circular, like India, like the Middle East, like Near East. And you have a culture that's linear. A linear culture is always a how-to culture. It lacks patience. It's always looking for steps, A circular culture, like the Indian culture, Egyptian culture, is that, life is a mess, and what works at 10 o'clock is not going to work at 10:05. And somehow you have to just live with the messiness of everything. Part of it is also temperamental. Some people are not just linear thinkers. They are more storytellers, and that's just the way their brain works. And if you're a Moses, for example, you can never be a Jesus. You can try, you just won't be very good. And if you're a Jesus, you can never be a Moses. And there are certain moments where it's good to turn the other cheek, and there are certain moments where it's just best to just decapitate the person standing next to you. But you have to really know what the hell it is that you're doing and who the hell you are. And you have to be okay with both aspects of, the lion and the lamb. The last stage, which is, I think, it's such a difficult place to be, is for the first time you have entered a different stage in life. You no longer want to just think, be on the sideline and just look at something and just take notes like a journalist. And it's something that, for those of you who are interested in novels, Albert Camus has this book called The Plague. It's a beautiful book. And it's basically about that. It's about, there are some people who simply are like journalists. They go to certain places, it's falling apart, people are dying left and right, it's devastated. And they write and they send it through a telegram, and then it's published the next day. That's what they do. And even though they want to cry, they want to scream, it's against their profession. And there's a doctor in the novel who has gone to school for many, many years, and doctors have this illusion that they can play God, they can fix anything about the physical aspect of the human being. And what happens in the book, in both cases, at a certain point the journalist says, I'm so tired of standing far away from life and just taking notes. I want to go in there, I want to get dirty, I want to get beaten up, I want to see what life is like from the inside. I'm tired of reading about Gurdjieff. I want to go out there and find the goddamn Gurdjieff. I want to get beaten up by a good teacher. And then there is a doctor. And at last, after having gone through many years of schooling, after having, I think, bringing back a lot of health to people, he comes to realize this is a disease, a virus, a plague that I just don't have the proficiency to cure. And he throws down all of his instruments and he says, in the presence of death, I can't do anything. And what you have in both cases, both people growing kind of disgusted by who they are, what they have been most of their lives, and they want to get, dirty. They want to wrestle with life. And you find yourself in this moment of paralysis, and it's a long moment, Now you want to bring your thinking and emotions into action. Let's say, for us, let's say I really want to make philosophy come to life for you. I know how inspiration works, man. I know how messy and complicated life is. I know the politics involving life. But I also know the importance of philosophy. I know how valuable it is. And it really is, for the most part, it is the kingdom of God. Socrates is the Jesus Christ of philosophy. And if you want to follow Socrates, you got to sell everything you got. But when you look at us, what is it that we have? Well, she is a Christian. He's a student. You're married with 20 kids. He's got money. He has a life purpose. But all these people, if they want to follow Socrates, they got to sell everything they have. And then you sit back and say, okay, well, at least thank God that he is married, or she's got money, or she's got a church to go to. At least there's a place that they can go to once life falls apart. They know how to pray, there's a companion, there's a resting place. If they follow Socrates, where is Socrates going to take them? Nowhere. The only thing that Socrates has to offer you is the time you spend with him or her. There is nothing else. The real kingdom of God is a Socrates that lives inside you. That's what he did to Plato. And Plato, we know him to be profoundly rich even in 2023 because he wrote the dialogues in the Republic. They last longer than money. Now, yes, Irania. So, just in case some of you in this class may at some point desire to be a social activist, a political activist, make sure you have listened to today's talk well. Think well first. then be able to speak your ideas well. Once you grow tired of thinking in solitude or maybe in a crowd, once you grow tired of just talking to people who just don't understand anything, or maybe do understand, maybe you can form a community and put your money together and go to Costco, buy ingredients, make sandwiches, and pass them out every Saturday and Sunday. Berkeley, Oakland. You don't have to change the entire world. That's not going to happen in your lifetime. And you realize even the desire to make sandwiches and give them out to people, that requires a good amount of sacrifice, money-wise, time-wise, friend-wise, a lot of things. And even when you do pass out sandwiches to people who are needy, you'll come to realize many of them will never thank you. Will look at you with a great amount of suspicion if you have poisoned the sandwich or whatever the case may be. And now you have to make sure that as you give the sandwich away and the person looks at you and says, well, give me another one. You realize you want to come out and say, you know what, the sandwich I gave you, give it back to me.
So I was watching the video of Oedipus, whatever, loving your faith, and
Oedipus?
Oedipus?
Eddie?
Oedipus?
Oedipus,
Okay,
yes, Oedipus.
Yeah, and then I was watching the
Where are you going? Of course. Water. I'm just kidding, Samuel, go ahead.
and then I was very interested in the how you said that God chooses most people to be ordinary,
Yeah.
and then you also mentioned Shiva's cosmic dance, creation and destruction. But my question was, after I watched the video, is how do people lose the addiction of wanting excessive attention in the internet or just in general?
That's a great question.
And then how do we all just learn to find happiness in our daily routines?
You can't.
How do we learn to choose routines that bring us simple but respectful joy? Because I feel like there's a lot of disrespectful things people do to themselves to gain attention, particularly in the internet and in public, that's one. And how do we learn to appreciate and find likeness with the people we casually encounter on a regular daily life?
May I know the semester is almost over. If I can make a confession, when anybody asks me more than one question,
It's one question, but it's just like,
no, I understand.
it's like,
No, I know there are many branches and footnotes, and I don't mean to say this in any disrespectful way.
I'm not.
I forget all the questions when there are too many things. Just give me one thing, just one thing. How about let's do the first one.
How do people lose the addiction of wanting excessive attention?
No. The ordinary part.
You just want to focus on the ordinary?
Yeah.
God, the thing you said?
Yeah.
God chooses most people to be ordinary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, sometimes when I listen to the stories of Malcolm X and Mahatma Gandhi or Socrates, they are inspiring. And I am a very lustful man. I want to be like a Malcolm X or a Gandhi. And so I devour books on Malcolm X and his philosophy and Gandhi and the rest of them because I want to be like them. They give me an image of maybe potentially something I can be. I don't know if I have the capacity. Right? I also realize that my parents are getting older and they need help. I also realize that I need a job to pay rent. I also realize that I have a companion who needs attention, who needs support. I also realize that I have children. What I have in my life is the reality of my life. I'm a married man with kids, with a rent, with payments of sorts. Malcolm X is an image that stands over there. Now, I can look at the reality of my life and say, you know what? Everyday activities is a chore. It's a burden. It's enslavement. It's the matrix. It's becoming a Duracell battery. I don't want to do this anymore. And then I escape from the reality of my life and I take shelter under the wings of Malcolm X or his writings. Okay? And this is a new phenomenon. This is only in the last maybe 40, 50 years where people want to become something that they really can't. You know? It's like all of us know that you can't be a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know that you can't be a Bjorn Borg. You know that you can't be a Mike Tyson. How the hell do you imagine that you can be a Jesus goddamn Christ? And you realize something very interesting. When it comes to certain physical aspects of life, they just tell you, you are not Kobe Bryant. Shut your mouth. You're 2 feet, 2 inches tall. But if Jesus Christ, in abstraction, is 900 feet tall, you say, oh yes, if I continue eating carrots, I'll be that tall. So what you have in the current culture, and because it is an industrialized, privileged, entitled, self-righteous culture in which you and I live, and remember, you can only idealize things when your belly is full, when your life is comfortable for the most part. When you have access to literature, which is divorced from life. Okay. Being ordinary means something that the Buddha couldn't do. You made a promise to your wife, man. Just be married. It's tough. Suck it up. And if you look at marriage in the right way, you realize, well, marriage requires you to be Abraham, but not just you sacrifice one son. You got to sacrifice a whole host of things. So that your kids, when they come home, they know that their parents are there. You got to sacrifice your time. You got to sacrifice your self-righteousness, your ego, your pride, all sorts of things. Money. Your wife says, can we go to the mall? I hate people, I hate them all, but because I love you, I will sacrifice the way Abraham did. These are tough things to do. And when you have a culture where people lose that perspective, what you have is a complete mess on your hand. Nothing works. I mean, look, I don't have the capacity to go wake up at 2 in the morning to the basketball court like Kobe Bryant and just shoot basketball. It doesn't work for me. I don't care, maybe, Jesus Christ.
You were like 6'5".
The point is, you know, don't be deceived by the illusions that other people and books create for you. You're just a simple, ordinary person. Just do the simple, ordinary things. I mean, you may be Einstein, fine. But you're taking a philosophy class, do the goddamn assignments. Pass the class with, it's not about you, I'm just saying. If you can't see what's in front of you, forget the, yeah.
I think I have a question about when you were talking about words. And
Words?
language. And it was the same. The language like a map, but also the map isn't the territory. You know what I'm talking about?
Can you just use your own words? Yeah, instead of giving me something you read somewhere. Because then I can understand you. Because I feel sometimes when we use other people's ideas, we kind of get lost as to what it is exactly we're asking or wanting. So if you can, I mean, maybe it's your words. You know, I don't really know. But at least tell it to me in a different way that I can understand.
I think it's like what congruence is kind of it has to do with think properly, then you speak properly, then your actions properly. So my question is, your words kind of describe and also prescribe your reality. How do you
Let me, if I may, just add a footnote. The moment you begin to act, you're going to trash about 90% of your thoughts and 90% of your speech. Because what action does, you begin to see what's beneficial, what's helpful, what's useful, and what's not. You know, thinking is wrestling in solitude. Speaking, for the most part, you speak to people that know you, are comfortable with you, all that. The moment there's a debate and someone overpowers you, you will no longer debate them again. So action, and speech and thoughts are usually very private exercises. Action, on the other hand, is very, 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 very different. It puts your words and your thoughts to test, and you will fail. You will fail for a long, 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 long time. And then whatever thoughts and language you have after that, they have all been tested by action. I think marriage is great. I think having kids is great. But if you were to come to me and say, I want to get married, you were going to get married, I will tell you, you won't survive. You have no money, you have no education, you're far too young and incompetent. Incompetent because you haven't lived life enough. And how you have defined love is all wrong. And your companion is also profoundly immature. And as a man, you kind of just are behind by 5-10 years. So it's just not going to work. Now, you can give me Leo Buscaglia. You can give me ideas of forgiveness and compassion and sacrifice and all that. It's just talk. It means nothing. Yeah.
Oh, let me think better first before I.
Mustard and ice.
I'm sorry?
Mustard and ice.
Oh, mustard and ice cream. Yes, yes. Go ahead.
With thinking, so we have these bigger ideas, analogy, these kind of life lessons that we learn through stories. Is there a way to map on those life lessons to your own story, or to identify where those things are, and then tell it? Is there a trick to do so? Finding these things and telling, the stepping out of your own head into the storyteller. You got any good tricks on that?
Okay, a couple of things. First, I have a meeting at 10:20. That's number one. Number two, it's a difficult question. Number three, I don't think I fully understand your question. Number four, but because I have a big mouth, and let me just try to respond to it very, very quickly. The second line of Rumi's poem, که از نیستان تا مرا ببریده‌اند در نفیرم مرد و زن نالیده‌اند. Just the first stanza. که از نیستان تا مرا ببریده‌اند. Neistan is a plot of land where reeds grow. You guys know what reeds are, right? Reeds are like the bamboo sticks. Okay. که از نیستان تا مرا ببریده‌اند. Boride means to cut. So you have a community of bamboo sticks. One morning, some guy goes out there with a knife or an axe, cuts the bamboo and brings it home to his garage. From that point on, now, me who has cut the bamboo don't hear the laments of the bamboo that's been cut. But if I was to pay close attention, the bamboo would say, I lived with my community, my brother, my sister, my aunts, my cousin, my this, my that. I also come from a land, a bamboo land. They've been there for thousands of years. There's a culture there. There's tradition there, rituals there, customs there, etiquettes there. It gave me meaning, belonging, identity. I have a history. You cut me from all of that. And you take me to your garage to use me as a 2x4. And then as a bamboo, the only story I have is a story of grief, sadness, separation. Now, I say that to you because it's something that I have felt most of my life. And I can't express it eloquently in a language that belongs to me, so I plagiarize. I go to Rumi, grab a line, okay, that is compatible to the way I feel. I bring it out, make it my own, and give it to you. That as people, as animals, we are in such a privileged place because every single one of us in this classroom who has had experiences, there have been people before us who have had those experiences, and those people were gifted enough to write and speak of those experiences. All you have to do is just look around, do some research, find the person who spoke certain experiences that are relevant to you. And the idea that I want to do it all alone, I want to create all the stories by myself, through myself, I think it's something that should never, ever be done. You're not going to go anywhere. I mean, it's a human, it's like a Costco, man. It has everything. I don't know, again, if I understood your question. But, please.
Well, I'm reading a lot of different things, and I'm reading people's structure, what they're talking about, and all of these things, and I've been drawn to one style, I guess, one kind of thing. I guess I'm doing what you're saying.
No, it's good. If you have found, what your temperament gets nourished by, just stick to that. Yeah, don't let other people influence you otherwise. Yeah. Samuel, you're tired, huh? Well, it's good to see all of you. Take care of yourself. Thank you. I think next week will be our last week, is it? Oh, 2 more? Okay. No, it's great.